don't worry about what other people think or say. Just be true to yourself, because they're going to talk shit about you anyway. So instead, build a castle with the bricks they throw at you.
Welcome to another episode of my podcast, Relentless Season 4. Today's joining us, Friska, Wirya. Is that correct?
Brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Now, you're down from Sydney, so I was very, very lucky to actually have you live on our podcast. I was actually going to come up to Sydney to interview a few guests, so lucky you're in my office. I would have been up in Sydney.
Oh, there we go.
Tell us a little bit about your journey as an entrepreneur and how you got into the thing, and then we'll talk about all the other things you've achieved.
I would say that I'm an accidental entrepreneur. I had a very high-paid senior role. I was the youngest GM in a big gold mining company. And after a few years there, I was just really burnt out. I'm usually a very healthy person. But in the past 3 months, I must have fallen sick about 5 times. So the pressure was high. Culture definitely was not great. Constantly traveling. And it's not your cushy Melbourne-Sydney route. Being mining, it's Melbourne, Brisbane, Port Moresby, down a mine site in a helicopter. So it's quite
How often were you travelling?
every 3 weeks.
Oh, so it's very laborious on you.
Very laborious, and lots of time zone changes like Canada, Indonesia, Australia, Papua New Guinea, and also fluctuating temperatures. So from hot and balmy humidity, like 35 degrees, 90% Celsius, to negative 35 in British Columbia. So it was very punishing. And I decided I wanted to try something new. I didn't want to look back 10 years later and always wonder what if I had the guts to kind of walk a different path. I chose to start the business at probably the worst time ever, November 2019. And then 2-3 months later, as we know, the whole world erupted, COVID broke out, lockdowns, mandates. And when everything got shut down, it took with it my entire pipeline. And so because I was new, I was staring into a deep, dark hole like an abyss. I didn't qualify for JobKeeper, JobSeeker, none of that, because I was new. I didn't have previous income to prove that I dipped 30%. And so it was really sink or swim. I could either cry about it, or I could realize that this was a really great opportunity, because everybody was at home. Everybody was bored out of their minds. Everybody wanted to be educated or inspired or entertained. And that's when I started taking thought leadership and personal branding seriously.
Yep.
My chosen platform was LinkedIn. So I just started focusing on delivering really insightful content. And back then, no one was really doing the 60-second videos. I hated doing it. It was like poking my eyes out with a blunt needle. But it was very, very effective, because it was like the equivalent of being on primetime TV.
Well, of course.
Right? Everybody was there.
You're producing your own show.
Yeah. And so my followers grew from 5,000 to nearly 48,000 today. That's just in the space of 2 years.
That's fantastic. Well done.
Thank you. And since then, and it's just opened so many doors. I have the blue chip clients. I have the international travel. I've spoken on Tedx, like you said, and I'm getting all these inquiries, but it's all because I just had to remove that comforting cloak of invisibility. Yeah.
But it's interesting that you say that, because I do feel you probably started at the best time, because I think through chaos you can see opportunity. I remember I scaled Reventon. I started in 2005. I scaled Reventon in 2008 when the GFC hit.
Yeah.
So everyone was telling me, I shouldn't leave my cushiony job in 2005 when I started the business, had a bunch of debt, and I shouldn't scale in 2008. But I said that's the best time to scale. Most of the best companies were built, or their foundation grew through hard times, because you really have to put everything under a microscope.
Yeah.
So the people are usually going to quit, or other entrepreneurs like yourself. And I've had quite a few guests, funny enough, in this season that started their business during COVID, and they're running fantastic businesses. And the one commonality that I saw with all of them is their mindset. Hey, I'm here, I've got to do this.
Yeah.
And I think you had no other option. So it's really good hearing those stories. I'm hearing a lot of them in this season.
Yeah.
So you thought, here we are, I'm going to start so would you call yourself, you make brands visual? What would you say your company actually does?
So the bread and butter is change management consulting. So I help very large organizations pivot from A to B. That pivot could be a restructure. That pivot could be an acquisition, or the opposite, a divestment. But usually it's some sort of large-scale technology implementation where they've invested millions on the best tools, but they're not getting the ROI. And it's because the people side of transformation has been neglected. So I protect their investments in tech.
You talk a lot about that, and you mentioned TEDx, and we're going to refer to this a little later on as well, because you were one in the top 1% in the Melbourne speakers, if I'm correct. And I saw your TEDx, and it's very good. We'll put the links below. I highly recommend you watch it. And you were talking a lot about people invest a lot of it in tech, but don't invest in the resources and the people to understand the tech to use it effectively.
Correct. And for them to not be scared of it. Like ChatGPT is a perfect example. It's been banned in schools, in many businesses, etc. So that fear of the unknown and the new, it's very common. But my role is to reduce. Well, to be frank, we haven't evolved much as human beings. We like to think we're a lot smarter and better, but we haven't. So it's a knee-jerk reaction from the prehistoric era to protect us, to make sure that we didn't get eaten by dinosaurs or we didn't drop down a cliff somewhere new. And it's still very much hard-grained into us. And also, the brain regards anything new as a stressor. So
as a threat.
It's
like fight or flight, isn't it?
Yeah, fight or flight, exactly. And we are hardwired to remember the bad things, not the good things. So I'll give you a perfect example. I was walking down Pitt Street in Sydney. I was walking with my best friend. We were deciding where to go for lunch. And out of the corner of my eye, I see Jimmy's Falafels. And I love falafels. It had been written up in broadsheet. And I said, hey, let's go there. It's had really great reviews. And she goes, nah. Like, didn't even flinch. I'm like, what do you mean no? Why? She said, I had a falafel 8 years ago. I got food poisoning. It was terrible. Never doing that again. That's a personal example, but this happens in organizations all the time. They have a bad experience with a change at work. They automatically think all changes moving forward are going to be exactly as painful.
People fear change, but they should embrace it. Anthony Robbins talks a lot about that, and I think it's the most inevitable thing. But I understand the apprehension to something so powerful, but if it's used correctly, I'm sure it can make us smarter or better in other areas. It might open other opportunities.
That's
and we
right.
don't know what we don't know either.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, all progress came through change. There cannot be any progress without change. Same with innovation. Right? And people, not only do people fear the unknown, they fear looking stupid, they fear failing, but really we need to reframe failing. There's no such thing as failing, it's just feedback. I mean,
win or learn.
Yeah, I mean, look at Edison. He tried 1,000 times to figure out the light bulb, for crying out loud. Lots of people are the same boat, right? Vera Wang created her first dress at 40. Colonel Sanders became a millionaire at 60. So you're only running against your own race, but you know, people see the 30 under 30, 20 under 20, then they think that it's a superficial time frame that we're trying to compete against.
I think one of the biggest key things in what I loved about Edison, he never said I made a mistake. He used to say I'm one step closer to figuring it out. And that's all a mindset thing, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And I think when you put yourself in a box of 30 under 30, 40 under 40, you're comparing yourself to someone's chapter 50 when you might be at chapter 1.
Yep.
You might get there quicker, but you might have started later. You might get there slower. It doesn't really matter because you're only competing against yourself. But I think when you're seeing all these examples that you're 30 under 30, I'm 31, I can't do that. Or I've had people that started businesses at 50, 60. You gave some amazing examples and look where they are. But I think it's either a positive or negative bias. You will find whatever you want.
Yeah.
If you want to see the good examples, you'll see them. If you want to see the bad ones, you'll also see them too. Guess who you surround yourself or what you put in your mind is very important.
Yeah, you have to be so intentional with what you put in your brain, what you put in your mouth, like what you eat, and who's in your circle.
Yeah. I had one of my mentors who always used to tell me, Gecko, Chris, garbage in, garbage out, put the right things in your brain. And he was always a very upbeat fella. He was one of the guys who taught me a lot about sales. And I always remember his words because no matter what, what's the worst situation? How do I learn from this? How do I grow? How do I evolve? And I've adopted a lot of his mentality. And it's helped me not only in business, but in life. No matter how bad it is, I always say, I'm going to have to deal with it anyway. I'm going to smile. Because it makes people more pleasant, releases endorphins to make the other person happy. But I'm going to deal with it. I'm doing it with a smile anyway. I don't care. Let's go. And it's helped me. And I feel that it rubs off against people around you too. And conversely, when you see somebody else who doesn't matter what's going on, it's negative, they just bring you down.
Energy vampires.
They kill you. And I'm just like, there's always something bad you're going to say, no matter how good it is. So who you hang around with is very important. So some of the companies that you've worked with tech-wise, what would you go in there and do? What would be a typical example?
Okay, I'm working with a very large engineering company right now. It's part of a massive conglomerate in Singapore. With them, it's about creating their 2026 strategy. So what does that company, 1st of January 2026, what does it look like? And then working very closely with the senior leadership team to flesh out, if that's our goal, what is it going to take to get there?
2026. So in 3 years.
Yeah, in 3 years' time.
So
Yep.
they've got their plan for this 3 years.
No, they don't have the plan. They just have the vision. So I work with the end in mind. That's the ending spot.
I saw that.
If that's what the
And then
ending
reverse
is,
engineer
how do we
it?
get there? Yeah.
And then you reverse engineer the
Yeah, what are the changes that need to happen today to make sure in 3 years' time that's the reality that we're looking at?
It's exactly what we do in sales when we're looking at a certain revenue that we want. How many sales, how many leads, how many appointments. You do the same but for a business to a much larger scale.
100%. Yeah.
Wow.
And then actually get them to do something differently. Like, for example, one of them is about employee experience, improving the employee experience. Well, that's not going to magically improve by itself. You need to map out the employee journey. You need to hire experts in service design. Like, all these things need to happen, and then that cascades into a stream of work. So I help oversee that delivery.
Okay, so you obviously implement the strategy, you discuss the plan, you implement the strategy, and then and what you need to do step by step.
Yep.
That's incredible. And so going back, you started the business, where we're going back to when you started 3 years ago during COVID. You're staring into an abyss. How did you then transform that into getting clients, and how did you then build momentum into what you're doing now?
I was talking to a friend of mine who's the CEO of a not-for-profit, and, being a grasshopper, very new to the business world, I was like, bloody hell, 4 weeks in, I've got nothing. Like, what's wrong with me? And he said to me, look, the only thing standing in the way of where you are today and where you want to be is obscurity. So you need to take your own medicine, right? You change organizations for a living. Now you need to change yourself. You need to realize the way people are consuming information.
So being seen, is that what you're referring to, being visible?
Yeah, being visible and realizing how to shape first impressions. Because I do that in organizations all the time for a transformation, but I've never done it on myself.
How did you do it?
So I realized, there's a common change framework. It's called ADKAR, awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, reinforcement. The first one is awareness. So how do I get the awareness out there that A, I exist, B, I'm bloody good at what I do, and C, what are the channels? So that was the first step, creating that awareness.
Yep.
And that's where I chose LinkedIn as my profile. D is desire. How do I elicit the desire for other people to be interested in what I do, to realize that I can help them? So that's where the thought leadership came about, mapping out, being very disciplined, diversity of thought leadership as well. Then it's knowledge. How do I give people the knowledge to kind of contact me, see how I can help them, etc. That's why I've got case studies, informational guides, then translating into ability. So, okay, they know who I am, they want to get to know me, I've given them the information how to do that. I had to remove the friction from the buying process. So that's when I started to productize what I do. That's when I started to diversify. It's not just the consulting, which at the time was at a standstill because big organizations didn't know what hit them. They just froze like a deer in the headlights. They were pulling back on everything. Yeah, they're pulling back on everything. So I had to, kind of like the Apple ecosystem, when you start with the lower cost, iPod, then you graduate to the iPhone, then you've got the laptop, then before you know it, the whole kit's Apple. Same with me. So what are some lower ticket offerings that I could provide to show value and kind of whet the appetite for more? So that's where build the ecosystem. That's why I've got, an ebook. That's why I've got video content. That's, workshops, all these things I started mapping out. And last but not least, reinforcement. So once they've bought from me, what's going to keep them buying from me? So that means
how do you make them sticky?
I always need to stay sharp, always providing value, always working on something new.
Of course. That's actually funny. When I started the business, I was a company that referred to a finance company, property company, accounting company. Now, on the 21st of this month, we celebrate 18 years, and my goal was to be a full integrated financial services company. We then, 12 years ago, started a finance arm, property management, financial planning, accounting, and we're just adding all these services. Very similar things. Yeah. My ecosystem.
So it becomes like an octopus, people don't want to go anywhere else.
That's the exact example one of my mentors and coaches said. Become like an octopus, Chris. where it's very, very easy for people to do business, but very hard to disengage. They need you. You're their accountant, you're their financial planner, you're their advisor, you're their mortgage broker. So over time, that was the exact example. One of my, Kevin France, his name is one of my coaches and mentors, said, become like an octopus. Easy to do business, very hard to disengage. And I think no one does it better than Apple. Like, you go to buy one different device, I'm thinking, no, I've got a laptop, I've got a phone, I've got this, I've got that, and then we just don't want to buy different products sometimes because I just can't be bothered with learning it. But it's very interesting. And then from that, obviously, I've noticed as well, you work with young females as well, helping them?
I do, yeah. So I've partnered with Women Leaders Institute for 4 years in a row. And then, I do a series of different masterclasses and workshops with them all around Australia and in Singapore as well.
Tell me a bit about them.
So my flagship one is called Invisible to Influential. So that's a full-day workshop.
I read that too.
So in saying that, I have also rolled that same workshop up to Culture Ramp and Salesforce. So it's not just for women, but women in very male-dominated industries I know the challenges that they're facing because I've been there, done that. I've been introduced as a freaking secretary, for God's sake. No offense to secretaries, but it's
getting better though now, isn't it?
It is getting better, but it still happens quite a lot, and it's hard for women in those industries to find their voice and just be known for the unique, talented individual that they are. So I give them a platform to enable them to do that.
I think it's great. Having women in business, I think, is fantastic because I always say it's not us versus them. Women have a very different skill set to men, and it shouldn't be women or men, because why not put both their skill sets together and create something different? Men are better at certain things, women are better at certain things. Why not identify that and work together as opposed to let's create that? Because for a very long time there was a lot of positions that were dominated by men, but there is a lot of men that actually want that gap to close faster. Like myself, I've got 3 little daughters. I want that to close faster. But also, I believe as an owner, as a CEO, there is massive benefits to having females working alongside me. And I also believe with females there's massive benefits to have men working alongside them. So there is people that want to close that gap quicker. It's good to see. So helping young women obviously find their voice, become from, invisible
to influential. Because like first impressions, they're made in about 3 seconds flat. And if you don't get off on the right foot, it's going to be very hard to come back from that.
It's what you say and what you see, yeah? First thing
what you say, how you say it, and what you see. And often women who are engineers, who are working on oil and gas platforms, who are down mine sites, they don't think of these things. It doesn't come naturally to them. But the more that you move up the career ladder, the more and more important these people skills are. And that's what I teach them.
So emotional intelligence, understanding awareness and surroundings. Obviously your hard skills of knowing how to do a job in your competency, but your emotional side where you can deal with people, understand what they're seeing and looking at. Now, I also saw that you've won quite a few awards as well. Tell us a bit about that.
Last year seemed to be the year of awards. So I was recognised by a Thinkers 360 as a top 50 global change management consultant, Australian Small Business Champion of the Year last year, and Stevie International Women in Business last year as well. And this year I got top 50 APAC business influencers you should know.
That's fantastic.
Thanks.
So obviously all your hard work's obviously paying off.
It is, yeah.
What is your future plans?
My future plans is, the way I see it, I have 4 kind of legs on the table. The first is the consulting leg, which is obviously helping very large organizations where I started. But I since have diversified from that, and I want to strengthen the other legs, because the consulting leg's very strong. So the speaking I want to do a lot more of.
Keynote speaking, I read.
Keynote speaking, definitely on the topics of digital transformation, future fitness, communicating without authority, and working in cross-cultural organizations. The third would be the online content. So I'm currently working on my second online course, which is the online version of the one-day workshop that I've partnered with Women Leaders Institute about. And last is the custom bespoke stuff. So leadership offsites, tailored engagements, board-level engagements.
So let me get that one straight. So you're walking in, use us as an example. I'll hire you and you come into the boardroom and make a speech about leadership?
No, it's usually like a full day or a 2-day event.
Like a masterclass, so to speak.
Yeah. So, for example, 2 weeks ago, I was on the Gold Coast, and for an engineering company, they wanted to educate their top 100 leaders on what it actually means to lead people through change. So what are the skills that they need? So it was a deep dive into that for 2 days.
Give me, and I know it's a very, very hard question because you have limited time. Give me a couple key points that we can give my listeners to what would be some of the takeaways they'll have.
The takeaways they would have is practical actions and strategies to drive change in an organization. Humans are hardwired for story and connection. So what are the fundamentals of storytelling that you can use in your business to either solidify your reputation as a leader or drive engagement with a particular new corporate strategy or a program? And last but not least, what are some key talking points that you can use with your direct reports? Because as good as change management experts are, they can't transform an entire organization. It's really the leaders that need to step up and become a champion of change. So what does that look like?
But obviously too, it's with change, sometimes it needs repetition.
It does.
Some leaders can adopt change much, much faster. So when you're dealing with your team, you might take a week, they might take a month, which means it's going to be repetitive. It's going to be over and over again. Any change takes time. And sometimes leaders might see that slightly quicker. So I think that's something that I've found in running all my businesses, that sometimes when I see something and I get excited, I go to present and I think that everyone's going to get excited or do it as fast, but sometimes it takes longer.
It does take longer, and especially since COVID, our attention spans have dwindled to 2.5 times less than pre-pandemic levels.
People are normal now. They're like me because I've got ADHD. So
in one ear, out the other.
No, I feel a lot happier now because I've got ADHD. So everything's super, super fast. So, but now I've got even faster. So I'm in the same challenge. But it's because of everyone's attentions. Even if you look at people scrolling, every attention span, it's very, very hard to capture.
It is.
And even if you do, it's so quick.
And that's why you need to repeat. And when I say repeat, I don't mean say the exact same thing 10 times. I mean, say the same thing, paraphrased, different formats, right? Face to face, read about it, do a presentation, etc. So it's like layering, layer upon layer upon layer to build that understanding in someone's brain. Yeah.
It's like top of the mind marketing. So when you look at how many times people used to see an ad to act, it went from 5 to 7 to 8 to 9, and they could see you maybe on a billboard, they might see a car, they might see you on the radio, they might see you on TV.
Yeah.
It's different visuals which they can get it because it will sink in a lot quicker.
Yeah.
But it's a lot harder to do that now too.
It is.
Everyone's got ADHD when you're looking at social media.
Yeah.
What are some of the quick strategies that people can adopt to be able to be seen quicker, do you feel, based on your experience?
I would say a picture says 1,000 words.
Yeah.
The most energy intensive ways to engage someone are also the most effective. You know, nothing beats face to face.
Like a video, is that what you're referring to?
Sorry?
Like a video?
Yes. And face to face interaction, like telling someone about this particular change rather than writing them an email, because it's right there in your face and it's fully immersive.
It's actually my favorite skill, but you know what I find with the rise of social media, there's so many people that are very uncomfortable with this way of communication. I feel it's the most effective. Some old-fashioned things I think will never be better. And being face-to-face with someone, I feel it's an art or a skill that's being lost. People aren't as good at that.
Yeah.
But it's so much value, because when I deal with people, and I might be a little bit old-fashioned, so I'll preface by saying that I like to see the person, I like to deal with the person. We're selling real estate now since COVID. Places around Australia, we're not even seeing people. Zoom's become so much more prevalent. And I feel COVID, in my guesstimation, has probably advanced the market by 10, 15 years on acceptance to do business that way.
Yeah.
We're talking real estate, whatever, all on Zoom.
Yep.
There's a company that does everything online. They don't even see the clients. Like back in our day when I started in real estate close to 25 years ago, everything was face-to-face. I'd drive out to their home. I'll do an in-home consultation.
Yeah.
I'll bring the clients into our office. They'll meet our finance guy. They'll meet the property guy. They'll buy property in Melbourne, or they'd fly up to Brisbane and buy something. Now that's a small percentage of what we do.
Yeah.
Everything's on Zoom.
Do you find there's less steps now in the buying journey?
I feel there's more steps, and I'll tell you why. I think it's harder to build trust on when you walk into someone's office, you can actually see that they've been around. Oh, they're not going to be gone gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I feel when you walk into something, seeing's believing, and you can get that feel of a business. It's easier to build trust, I feel, when I'm looking at you.
Yeah.
That's the way I feel anyway. And when I come into your office and I see your staff working, it's a lot different. But the newer age people, or the younger generation, I feel don't know any different.
Right.
So being online or being on Zoom it's just normal. It's very prevalent. But yeah, for me, even if I assign someone, when I do X deals, I fly up to meet them if they're interested because I want to see them.
Yep.
I'll do my due diligence before I operate. I'll put a good agreement in place. I'll call them, I'll speak to them, I'll see them on Zoom, and I say, once I do X deals with you, a developer or whatever the case may be, I'll have to fly up and shake your hand and see you. Because I just feel a lot more comfortable with that process. But no, it is a lot of your clients, do you do a lot of coaching on Zoom now?
Yes. So COVID has enabled me to get clients that aren't physically where I am. Geography is no longer an issue. So that wouldn't have happened before COVID.
You're nationwide now.
Yeah. I mean, people, like to see the whites of your eyes. They like to sit down and have a coffee with you, but we couldn't for the past 2 years. And so, I would have never been able to juggle multiple clients if it wasn't for COVID.
Do you prefer face-to-face?
I like to have a mix. It does get, pretty lonely working in your home office on Teams all day. Yeah.
Yeah, look, it is probably more tiring because when you go face-to-face, you've got to drive. It's a lot more process involved.
Yeah.
But I love it. I prefer 100 times over face-to-face. But it has opened us up to be national. You do have clients all over as well. So now you're about to launch, going back to your second course. What's your second course about?
It's the online experience of the Invisible to Influential course that I've run face-to-face in Melbourne and Sydney for the past 3 years.
It's basically online, so the X version of Online to Invisible.
Yeah.
So all your course details and stuff in your Tedx Talk, which again, well done, you're in the top 1% of Melbourne or all overall speakers? What?
Overall speakers.
Overall speakers.
Yeah,
and I did watch it, and I recommend people to watch it too. It went for about 14 to 15 minutes, and it's fantastic, and I did get a lot from it, so we'll put it all in the links. Are you ready for your quick fire questions, Friska?
Shoot.
Let's go. Now, if you could have one superpower, what would you choose?
Mind reading.
Mind reading. That would be scary. What am I thinking now? All right.
No, you know why, Chris? You must face this all the time in business. Like, the signals are yes. And then you send a proposal and then it's radio freaking silence. It's business ghosting. It's like, just be straight with me, man.
It would be good if I had that at poker. I love playing poker, so if I could read their minds. But always, people always say, and so I'll say, yes. That's a red flag, because I want to know their objections. I know what they're struggling with. Because then if I can answer that, they're closer to their buying sign. And I always say a confused mind doesn't act. So I need to know what they're saying or thinking. So I ask the question so I can get the sale closer to whatever you want to say. Yep. Beach or mountains?
Mountains.
Summer or winter?
Winter.
Call or text?
Text.
I'm a call guy. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
This one. Pizza or burgers?
Neither.
I was going to say I know the answer to that one. I know that I'm not going to answer the next one because it's similar. iPhone or Android?
Android.
Really? I thought of the iPhone example. It's definitely one. Morning or night?
Night.
If you could work with anyone, past or present, alive or dead, who would you work with?
Oprah Winfrey.
Great choice.
Yeah.
Would you prefer to be rich or famous?
Rich.
Favorite food?
Green smoothie.
Green smoothie. There you go. Favorite color?
Blue.
Mine too. What's your favorite movie?
Silver Linings Playbook.
If someone was to play your story of your life, which actress would they cast for you?
Michelle Yeoh, without a doubt.
Michelle Yeoh. I don't know who that is. Your biggest pet peeve?
Rudeness.
If you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, what would you say?
Don't worry about what other people think or say. Just be true to yourself because they're going to talk shit about you anyway. So instead, build a castle with the bricks they throw at you.
I always say people that throw stones usually live in a glass house. Doesn't really matter. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much have you enjoyed our podcast?
10.
Thank you very much for going on, Friska. It was an absolute pleasure. Remember, if you like my content, please subscribe, like, and follow Friska as well on LinkedIn for some great content and watch her TEDx Talk. Thank you. Until next time, have a great night.